So I call a lot of hospices, mostly customers, and while we're on the topic of, well, I have a juicy topic to discuss. I call a lot of hospices, and one thing I notice is a lot of hospices, the person that's answering the phone, two things. They don't, most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, they don't even say what hospice they're answering for, and they're not very friendly. So they don't say their name clearly, and they don't tell me what hospice it is. And so then I'm thinking, did I call the wrong number? And I say, I'm calling for ABC Hospice. And like, oh, who do you need to speak with? Like, I just don't understand why you wouldn't answer saying your name, this is ABC Hospice. So just like feedback, I can always tell our really, really good customers and our customers that don't care a lot just simply based off that very small detail of who's answering your phone. So I just wanted to bring that up.
I love that. It's just fantastic.
It seems like an easy fix.
It also brings us into a compensation question about those people that are like the front of the office. We used to really struggle with that very thing. It's like, how do you hire somebody that's fantastic to answer the phone? Because your client comes in our case, the client comes in and says, you should come work for me. And then, so what we did, we figured out years ago, Paul and I, instead of make up numbers. Instead of paying them $14 an hour, let's pay them $12 an hour and bank $2 every hour. And then they get to store that all the way up to the end of the year. And then at the end of the year, they got 2,080 hours times $2. It's like almost, $4,500. And very few people that make a wage are able to save up $4,000 or $5,000 in a given year. And then I've got them for a year. And then I turn around and offer them a better deal the next year or try to find somebody. But it really decreased our turnover in our most challenging jobs. Does anybody have trouble finding those great people in the front? Anybody found successful people? Yeah. Did you find one? Andrew?
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say the phones I think are something that have to be mastered, and obviously you have to have quality, competent people, and just like we talked about perfect visits, the first impression half the time is going to be a phone call. Okay. When you break down your people systems into your talent attraction, your selection processes is second, development, retention. One of the things, we just do a phone test before we ever set eyes on a human being. And because within the first 2 or 3 seconds, a human being figures out a lot about a human being. Education, level of energy, are they a smoker? All kinds of stuff. And so why not just hire people that have pleasing personalities, have a great personality? Because it's really hard to drop a new personality into a human being. If they got a personality that's a cardboard box or sandpaper. Let them work for bottom feeder hospice. So I was just going to say the phone thing and hiring, talented people. There are so many things that almost require zero energy, except for, building out certain systems that will get you top people, help you select those talents. But you always want to get people that already possess so many of the qualities that you want right from the front. Like phones are our big thing. We went 4.5 years. In our situation, we have no email or any of those backwards practices. When I say email, voicemail, all calls answered within 3 rings by a real person. And, I think our longest strength was 4.5 years where the phone didn't, because it's tracked in our systems, where the phone doesn't ring more than 4 times. People are diving over cubicles. But you can take just the phone skills just to absolute astounding. And Jordan, you're right on. Most hospices are just mediocre, but that's one of the biggest places where you can just win people because it's like, whoa. And some of you call our offices. What's the experience? I'm not trying to say whatever, but that was just a big juicy thing that was served up there.
Every time I've called his organization, MVI, they answer. And every experience that I've had with them is always positive, and they've always saved me from myself, because they have answers. And when I've had other staff call, I tell them, pay attention to how they answer the phone.
Fantastic.
But it's just mimicking a pattern. But I think you do have to hire that in the Katie League, those talented people. But a lot of that's going to come from the CEO too. So anyway, sorry, I talked way too much there. Sorry.
Hi. I think I agree with Andrew, because you can tell a lot about people just over the phone. And that's one of the processes that I do, just to kind of weed people out, especially like customer service jobs, because we're not looking for, master degree level, people. So, and I'm not expecting that. But if someone has a good attitude and they're eager and they care about people, we just hired 2 people for our customer service job, which has historically been a really difficult role to retain people in. And Jamie and I've worked really hard with that. But we just hired 2 people that are just amazing, and came here, and I've just kind of was like, whew, got that done, But a personality is really, if you can have a personality and be friendly and caring, you can teach the rest, the process and all that stuff. But you got to have people that care, I believe. And, we have people we also have a culture that is, there's a lot of teamwork, and there's a lot of, I'm going to show you how to do this. And we have people that have been there in that position for a few years. And, just a really helpful kind of, I want to see you succeed type culture. So. Thank you, Mark.
So to build on that, and then what we talked about yesterday was the culture. Everyone has had a really crappy job before, but you stayed in the crappy job because you like the people that you were with. So that's what you have to create if you want to keep them, and we're working on that. And also how much people, so Paul Hagen's story, super quick, because this made a really big impact on how I would like to be a leader, because no one can ever replicate Paul. But what happened with COVID and everything, and Paul wasn't in there. Paul wasn't the person who would sit behind the desk every day and didn't probably do as much day-to-day work as the rest of us. But he made more of an impact than any of us who sat behind a desk, because every single day he would come in and he would stop at everyone's desk, and he knew their name. Of course he knew their name, but he knew their kids' names, their pets' names, their birthday, and he would spend 5 minutes with each employee every day. And that made more of a difference than anything that the rest of us could ever do. And so the respect that he built for them, we don't have. Most of our people would never even think of robbing the company of time. They would never think about calling in sick when they weren't, or something like that, because of what he built with those relationships and that culture. And that is really important.
It's interesting, though. I would say, if I look at it differently in the same company, that those people that have more of the simple blocking and tackling jobs don't take advantage of Paul at all, or the company. But we've had a real problem with senior staff taking advantage of how nice Paul is. That's been my biggest nightmare in that company, is somebody going around me to go to Paul to get what they want, because he doesn't say no to anybody. You're not talking about me. I'm not talking about you.
Jordan. Yeah. You got to go around Dad sometimes. Right?
Does anybody deal with a talent pool that you're recruiting that's had more jobs than years of employment? Does that drive you crazy? Do you have any solutions? Because the first thing I look at is, all right, you've had 6 jobs in 4 years. I'm not even going to bring you in. I don't have any interest in that. Any solutions for that? Anybody had any great solutions lately about recruiting talent, finding great people? Anybody have a new juicy topic that they've been wanting to talk about? I need somebody to say, okay, I got a juicy topic. Because up on this board, I mean, up on here, there are no juicy topics out here.
I got a juicy
thank
topic.
you for being juicy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we've called each other a lot of things, but I've never been called Big Juicy before, at least not by you. So, he's blushing. Yes, I have. So let me stand up just because I want to do this right. All right. So at Qualis, we talk about there's a huge difference between a customer in your company and an investor. A customer of the Hyatt House, for example, sees a piece of trash, and we complain because there's a piece of trash. An investor picks it up and throws it away. And so kind of creating investor employees and friends and colleagues that care deeply about the company, that do the right things when no one is looking, has always sort of been something that we've tried to accomplish, formally and informally. My question is this. My father, a few years ago, passed away. And the hospice that served us was a good hospice, and it did a good job. And it's a local one affiliated with our hospital. I was shocked. We were pleased. And no one in the hospice ever converted me, my brother, and my mother from a customer of hospice as a caregiver to an investor. No one ever asked us to be an advocate for the hospice. Nobody ever sat down with us from the marketing side and said, you know, here's really who we are as a hospice. Can you help us market it? I would love to know what you all are doing to convert caregivers who've had a positive experience into advocates in the community. Who's first?
I mean, that, for me, is it tacky? Like, is it uncomfortable? We've done a good job, right? But having that conversation, will you do this for us? You know, I guess it's all in the way you ask. Because I'm going to be honest, I would feel a little bit uncomfortable. You know, training the staff to do it in a very, make sure we're tactful and it's the appropriate time.
So we are a not-for-profit. So we use our family members that have experienced our services to help us with all of our fundraising efforts. We have them, so we just ask after we ask them after it's all said and done. Most people are really willing to participate in that kind of stuff because they did have a positive experience with our organization. But we will do recorded videos of their experience so that we can use those on our website and on our Facebook. And then we have typically one speaker each year at our Festival of Remembrance that shares their story about their experience. And we try to utilize people that are well known in the community to try to get their friends also to participate. But our fundraisers, I think, brings a lot of community awareness so people know who we are, but we do utilize them significantly.
Go ahead. Just a couple things, I guess, kind of piggybacking off what you just said as far as using them. You know, one thing that we do encourage folks is, you know, we ask for testimonials, and that's a whole, you know, section on our website. But the other thing that I was going to bring up, a couple years ago, you know, we've looked, and there was a lot of talk yesterday about mission statements and revising the mission statement and really trying to get the employee buy-in into that. I felt like we needed to take that a step further, and so we created two things. One that we called our core values, and then another of our standards of service excellence. And one of the standards of service excellence that I put up there is very simple, and it's act like an owner. And act like an owner is something that when I go around annually and speak to the staff, I challenge them, and I make myself accessible when I'm in all of our offices. Sometimes I see myself almost more accessible than even the executive director in that program. I'm the one kind of walking around and engaging, and I sit with the nurses if they're at the conference room table, and I have to kind of gently remind the executive director, when's the last time you've done that? When's the last time you've asked your nurse about their new baby? I think that they get so wrapped up in their own jobs too. So that's very important, kind of like what you said, but acting like an owner, and that means exactly what it says. I want everybody within our organization to feel invested enough to be able to bring ideas, to be able to have a voice, to be able to wear our logo and our brand with pride, and to be able to ask them when somebody gives them good feedback, well, thank you for saying that. If you don't mind, you are going to get a survey at the end of this. That's incredibly important. And I know there's all kinds of rules about the HCAP surveys and what we're allowed to say and what we're allowed to do, but we have to get better retention on those, or return on those, I guess. And the survey is a monster all in itself, but that's a thing that we kind of put out there with our staff too, but really just acting like an owner. And I publicize that all the time. So.
So in regards to asking for feedback, this has been a very hot topic within our organization, and many staff have said the same type of objections, like I'm not going to ask somebody to go leave a Google review, or that's tacky to be able to tell them to tell a friend or family member. And it was interesting because this is something that we added in our perfect visit structure that we really focused on. And we, started with looking at our current realities of Google reviews and which offices did not have good returns and who didn't have any Google reviews. And so this last year we were up for the Idaho's Best Award. And one of the things they looked at was Google reviews. And so Candace, who does all of our PR and marketing, she said, I want to do like this little contest on which employee can get the most Google reviews. And it made me think about all of the conversations and all of the hundreds and thousands of families that I have had the opportunity of just talking with. And many times, and I'm sure all of you have experienced the same thing, they're like, we would love to do something for the staff. What can we do? Can I bake you cookies? I'll never forget my most favorite patient, Gary, and he pulled fudge out of his pocket and handed it to me. And he was like, here, have this fudge. This is all I have to give you. Like, you've given so much. This is all I have to give you. And we are so lucky that the population that we serve is so gracious and thankful, and they want to do something in return to help us and love us and endear them to us. And so last year, my husband's grandfather was on our services, and it was the coolest experience to be able to see all of the years of work that we in senior leadership have put in, and just like inspiring our staff to be better, to not have people call us for reasons they don't need to. We don't want to give any burden to patients and families. And so when I sat there, and I actually was the primary caregiver for my husband's grandfather, and all the kids, they had never lost anybody. They had never experienced death and dying, and they were so fearful of what this looked like. And the entire time, they just kept saying, you get to do this every day? Like, you have the most incredible staff. I feel like they're reading my mind. Like, how did they know that we were worried that Dad was running out of medications? Like, how did you guys know that we didn't know how to give morphine? Like, what made you so specifically teach us how to mix the morphine and the Ativan pill together so it was the perfect consistency? 2 spoons? You took 2 spoons and smushed them together? And we're like laughing, like these were specific scenarios we practice in our perfect visit. And here's my husband's family that had never been exposed before, was like talking about all those, what I thought were such silly details of how much impact that left in them. And so they said, what can we do? Can we give a donation? What things can we do? And so on the year anniversary of his death, I took the opportunity to send out a group family text message, and it happened to be right in line with the time we were up for this award. And the office that served him had barely any Google reviews. And so I said, let's do a little contest, and I want to start it because I love a good competition. Like, bring it on. And so I sent out a family message and I said, you know, you guys have all asked what you can do for me. Like, can you send me for a massage? Like, I don't want any of that. I can take myself and do that. What I want is for you to take a moment to share words with people that have never had this experience before. And I want you to do it in the form of a Google review. And I actually sent them the link, so it was easy. Like, grandma at 80 years old only had to do one click, and she did it very easily. And in like literally 10 minutes, we had 7 Google reviews. And it made my heart, the year celebration of grandpa dying, to be able to go back and hear their words a year later. Like, it was the coolest feeling that I've ever had. And it also, from a proud moment from an organization, was like, hell yes, we did this. Like, this is awesome, you know? But those small things matter. People, don't bake us cookies. Don't give us fudge out of your pocket, because we're not going to eat it, I promise you. And if I do, I'm going to puke when I leave. But give us reviews, tell the story, share the feedback, go on and say, like, Nurse Susie Q was the most amazing thing. I don't know how I would have done it without them. And what a better gift that we could ask our people to give us. And so teach your staff to capture those moments in the visit when they say, I just couldn't do this without you. What can I do to thank you? Like, here's a gift card. No, you know what your gift is to me is you can share the story with someone else, or you can go on and take 5 minutes and do a Google review. Have cards printed out. We have cards that say, click here for a Google review, that you can hand them in that moment. This is the greatest gift you can give our organization. Teach your staff how to do that, because people want to. You just have to teach them how to have that conversation with those people that they get.
Awesome. It's also a gift paying it forward. Say, not only would help us, but somebody's out there looking for a good
Think about how many people, hospice. Like, you know, Pops was the same way. Like, he was falling down the stairs. He was going out feeding cows in the middle of the night. Like, they didn't know what to do with him. And I'm like, there's 9 other people, you know, for every one patient, there's actually 32. So there's many other people that need that. Go share that story with somebody else and help that, you know, little lady, or that, you know, young struggling family that doesn't know how to take care of their sick loved one. Like, people need that.
Consumer behavior tells us that people are 12 times more likely to post a negative review than a positive.
For sure. Yeah.
So if you don't have a strategy, you're going to get, even if you had 10% of your population unhappy, that's many more reviews and negative than you're going to get in a positive manner.
And by the way, we won that award, just saying.
Yeah.
Hall, back to your question, and I think Mark's point for the last hour has been, if you truly have your black hole value proposition, then you're not having to ask to turn customers into investors, and you did not have to ask for that review. They came and said, based on our experience with you, how can we share this message? And you just answered their question, right? So Apple doesn't have to ask me to be an investor. Chick-fil-A doesn't have to ask me to be an investor. That's something we're proud of. So yeah, how do we get there at Qualis? But I think it's asking for referrals is just judicious. It's marketing 101. But I think providing the service, people will naturally turn into those investors. And I think if you're begging them, it's like I spoke yesterday about manufacturing value. If you're pushing on something that's not there, they're not going to buy into it.
Yeah, I think if we learn from Disney, they have the magic. What magic is different to every person, but they know how to describe it by simple words. We just need to give them just simple enough words that they can use their experience to share what their opinion is of great care, or, you know, a beautiful experience or magic.
I was just there. The magic's gone. What? I'm sorry. It was very expensive.
So it would have been magical if somebody else paid?
Oh,
yeah. Okay, we need one more good juicy topic, and then we're going to talk about lunch. Yes, sir.
Yeah, can I just add, because we were talking about, circle back to the talent thing. Just one thought is, I know that there's these superstar breakthrough human beings of high consciousness, awareness, however you want to stylize it, but we're also surrounded by good people that want to do a good job. But most of the time they are failed by their companies not providing extraordinary tools and training that will leverage an ordinary person to do extraordinary things. That's what, like, perfect phones, perfect interactions, the visit. They're good people. And even someone that's like a hopper, maybe they've never been planted in a garden where they could actually bloom. All I know is that I go into small hospices, or I don't do as much of that now. Music's chewing up more of my time. But our folks, we can go into a small hospice of, like, say, such as a 30, and find very, very, very talented people. And then you can go to a client with 1,400 patients a day, and the CO goes, "I have no talent here." And I always say that CO, get your intelligence up. You got truckloads. It's just that you don't know how to recognize it, and you don't know how to liberate your people.
Although my brother is into this business, I'm not really. So I came out of sports cards and memorabilia for 27 years owning a business. So I know a lot about treating people correctly and the public and the people that come in that you don't invite in. And when we sold our store in Dallas and moved back to Oklahoma to be close to my family, I went to work for Mark part-time as radio producer, and I knew nothing about it. And he said, "Oh, you can learn it." So long story short, I wound up working at Benveo and wound up going into the claims department because it was so messed up, and that we had 1,000 backed up claims and a client that was just disastrous. And once you get down in there with the people, you realize how bad it is, and you just don't see it until you're there. So 2 things. I went to Mark and said, "This is really messed up, and the people are miserable. You've got great employees that are ready to quit because they're getting screamed at and they're crying and they're ready to leave and they're talking about quitting and they're having little gatherings." And Mark came down and said, and I said, and like, they're just answering the phone. It's like, "This is Brennan. How may I help you?" So Mark said, "Okay, this is what I want you to say. I want you to say, and you guys could use all the same stuff. Do you remember?"
Keep going.
I wanted you to say.
Stuff falls out of my head all the time.
Said, "Thank you for calling Benveo. This is Debbie, where your needs are my top priority. How may I help you?" So, I mean, your needs are my top priority. That says it right there. And when we had our sports card store, people asked for card shop, card shop, card shop. So we always say, "Thank you for calling Nick's. How may I help you?" Every time. And anybody that walked in the door got greeted. I don't care if I had 25 people. If somebody came in, we'd say, "Hey, how you doing today? Come on in. Come on in. Anything I can help you? Just look around. Let me know if you need anything." I mean, people, what I've noticed having had a business of customer service is people don't do that anymore. And when you do it, you make such an impact with people. And I've noticed, and my husband too, there's no customer service anymore. I mean, and Jamie's right. Where'd she go? Jamie's right. Our mother and I and my husband are in this hospice industry area where we don't know anything. And my mom's like, can I fire this hospice? Can I get another one? I mean, she doesn't know anything. And it's just so sad that you don't really learn about this business until it's too late, until you're already thrown in. It's like just getting thrown into something you know nothing about. So I would just say, put yourself in that person's shoes and think, okay, if that was me, how would I want to be treated? If that was my mom or my dad, how would I want to be treated? And I think that your needs are a top priority. I mean, who can't use that in this room? Nobody. Nobody can't use that. I think it was brilliant. I think you're brilliant. Anybody?
One thing I would really like to talk about is how do we take what we built here together, and this is a small part of our total population, but there are key people that are always here. How do we take this and advance it? So we need more influence on the Hill, both statewide and at the Capitol. We need to be sharing our message up there. We need to have a rally point. I was really disappointed when I was involved in NHPCO, and I'm not throwing rocks, it's just it didn't feel like there was a way to get involved and have a voice. You know, it felt like we're paying a lot of money for memberships that are not achieving anything except people are, making a lot of money off of us. That's how I felt. So we would really like to talk about, at some point, starting to cull data and have a understanding that this symposium and the things that we're trying to do together as a group is helping us. And so here are our metrics against the nation. Here are our results and our survey results against the nation. And I'd love to see that kind of thing. I'd love to see us have more influence.
You know what? I mean, if you wanted to do that, that's a free thing. As if a person's benchmarking, we just add a code to the system. It could be the SONOS group where automatically segmentize and compare it with, you know, the bulk of the more sophisticated hospices around the country, so we could see where the group stacks up, or subgroups. I mean,
You know what?
free. It doesn't hurt a dime.
You know what we're going to find is it's really the personality of the hospice that drives value, not the size. And there's some really big hospices that aren't doing a very good job.
Oh,
Yeah, and their numbers are pitiful.
yeah, no, the most profitable hospice segment is hospices in the 30 to 50 range, with a median profit margin of 15%. That's not EBITDA, that's just raw, whatever. And, but yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to take you up on that. We're going to have to find ways to say, all right, here are the participants in SONO. Here's how we're benchmarking against those others.
Yeah, the point is
being a
this,
part of that.
That would be 898 data elements with 922 cross-crowd calculations would be instantly available. I mean, if you can't figure out what's going on there, I don't know what to say.
The other thing we really need to do is we need to stay on top of what's going on in palliative care and Medicare Advantage and start getting more information out on a consistent basis to everybody here to prepare ourselves for the next wave when it opens up and people are ready to say, okay, I can go do that. Yes?
Does anybody in this room, have they applied for the SIT program? Speaking of Medicare Advantage, anybody in a state that has that? Or?
I know that Crossroads has done it because Tim Ehrig is involved in that.
They're doing the current one right now. They have applications.
I don't know if they're part of the beta at which sites. SIP, yeah, serious illness population.
And then it's really the primary care first, so it's a mixture of, and really what they're doing is they're trialing that to determine, if there is a program where they can actually have a reimbursable palliative care type program.
Really, I mean, like we talked about, like Tim talked about yesterday, it's really a matter of the people that are at risk of those dollars trying to offload those dollars to somebody else who's more appropriate to handling that. And that's got to be a change of the business model, the care model. And the only people that they've seen to do it is hospice. And if hospice does it like a hospice, it's not going to be profitable for them either. They have to do it like a palliative care organization, which is a change of paradigm.
So applications went out. It was supposed to start actually already, but with the new association, it's been delayed. So there's been lobbying happening to be able to get it moving. Happening to get it moving, to actually get it. They're hoping by July 1. So I just didn't know if anybody in this room had applied for that or heard anything.
Well, I've got a strong feeling that the current administration is going to be more hospice friendly than other administrations. And I'm not throwing rocks at anybody. I'm just saying that the truth is I think that this current administration is going to give us a better ear, the opportunity to tell our message, and we should take advantage of it.
Has anyone ever thought about this?
Is it juicy?
It is juicy. It's very juicy.
So, hey, I got a juicy one.
No, this is juicy.
Okay.
So I put a satellite location in a county where the underutilization of what we do is next to zero. Okay. And I'm dedicated in being there. Right. This is all age, just hospice in general, culture, physicians. And I am committed, and I'm going in there. Of course, they were hit very hard with the pandemic, and I'm going in there and meeting with physicians 9 at a time, new physicians coming in, because they do not know how to have that hospice conversation themselves. They have asked us to come in and lecture at the hospital level. I sit on the board for the Alamo chapter for case managers in San Antonio, and I told them I will come in and also bring my board to educate the staff, the case managers, because I told the physicians, do not feel like you have failed when you are offering this level of care. You are offering a level of care that you cannot provide at home. And I was very frank in one of my first meetings. I told them, you've had so much COVID. How many of you have called the widow of the 40-year-old? You don't. We do. Why would you not want that for your family? So going back to what Jamie said, We have to even empower these physicians, because sometimes, we get them too late. And I also told them, the case managers should be saying, hey, doc, Ms. Garza's been here now 7 times. When are we going to have that conversation? But if the community is so one-sided, that's an issue. But I'm meeting with the CEOs of the hospitals there within the next 30 days. And my goal is to make an impact, because why I got into hospice was because my grandmother was put on hospice on a Friday and she passed on a Wednesday, and the whole year before was nothing but suffering and trying to figure out what was going on with her. So that's why I'm in hospice. And I think with what Jamie said, we have to be those advocates. But my question is, do you all ever foresee, oncologists right now are getting dinged for, if a patient dies within 30 days of their last chemo treatment, they get dinged. I don't know if y'all knew that. Okay. Yes. Now, my question is, do you all ever foresee in the future, and I hope, that other physicians get dinged for not even providing it, not having that conversation? Has anybody, who would we have to talk to about that, right? Why would they not?
While you pass the microphone to the next person that has a comment about that, I want to say thank you, because in my presentation, when I was talking about persona, I wanted to talk about the persona of the physician and how they're afraid that they failed. And that we need to have the conversation that says, you have not failed as long as you pass them to us, so that the end is beautiful.
Yes.
So we're going to do things you cannot do. You don't have time to go meet with them at home, show them how to bathe, show them how to transport.
We are the experts.
We are going to take the baton from you, and together we're going to win. It's not a failure. I think that's a huge worry for them, because it's scary how they don't know anything about hospice, and their one thing they do is know, I failed that patient. No, you did not. You did not.
To remove the burden of eligibility off of them, because they were never trained in eligibility. They were never trained to identify what a hospice patient was. They were trained to save, and so their brains don't work in that way. They work on doing another test, doing the other thing. And so, like, I had a local physician where he is a brilliant, lovely man, but he could not have a hospice conversation, because for him it was giving up on his patient. So he would literally call us, and I would go sit with him in the room with the patient and say, okay, this is a goals of care conversation. This is not failure. This is adding another member to your team. You still get to have Dr. Smith, but you now have our amazing resources available at your disposal in your home. What more could you ask for? And so for him, he just couldn't do it. And so, and the eligibility conversation, they will never be good at that. That's what we are experts in. We got to give them the triggers, the ideas and the signs, and say, okay, now let me come in. Okay, they've had frequent hospitalizations. Check. You're worried. Do you think they'll die in the next year? Okay, then call me. Because if that's the case, we should be having conversations with every patient you think you would not be surprised if they were dying in the next year.
Yeah. Yes.
So this is one of the few advantages of being part of the integrated healthcare system, is we have all of that data for our providers. So we have, so we look at all of our primary care providers, specialty care providers, and what percentage of their patients who have passed away in the last year, what percent had a hospice referral, what percent was actively on hospice, what percent had a palliative care consult, what percent has ACP docs. So we have some tools to help with that. And then something that we're going towards right now, we're learning more about it, is this end-of-life predictive model, something that Epic's coming out with. Seems to be a little better than some of the other ones that are out there, and we're really excited about that. And what we're planning on doing is the information that we currently have with this end-of-life predictive model, then we can focus education on those providers and help them better understand the importance of that conversation. And then really, we're planning small sessions, 9 providers each session, and really doing these simulations. Let's talk through a goals of care conversation. Let's talk through how you would refer somebody to palliative and how you would refer somebody to hospice, how those two are different, how that feels. Yeah, specifically Vital Talk is where we're going with that. But you're really excited, but you need that data. You need, like, that data drives what you're doing, and I feel fortunate to be able to have that at our disposal.
I think it's important to realize that decision fatigue is a real thing. And so physicians, if you think about how many decisions they have to make in a day, like, they're the bottleneck of all the healthcare system. So going to Ashley's point, the more you can help them make decisions instead of teaching them as if they don't know enough or they need to learn something, they're inadequate. They feel that pressure with every decision they make. What are they, can you imagine their education and having to look at the human body and all of its complexities and determine with the best education they have what's happening and what's going on, how many times that goes south on them, what they have to live with as far as the burden, the burden that no one else carries but the physician. So again, I think it's important to realize when we're talking to any human being, and it's been said on customer service, we really do need to understand them. And people blame them, they get pissed off at them, and you should never talk to any person, let alone a physician, if you have any angst towards them or think that they lack something or they're screwing the patient. It's a long-term relationship that has to be baby gloved with, like, hey, 5 years from now we're going to get somewhere, and have that kind of patience, but really creating solutions for them to get rid of the decision fatigue. I know in my life, when I go to lunch, someone else always orders for me. So I just pick someone in the crowd and they say, I'll eat what they're going to eat. Is usually the case.
Hey, I'm going to have a ring of fire, man.
Yeah, I pick wisely, but I really, because it's just something I'm practicing where I try to eliminate as many decisions I have to make in a day, so I have the energy here to make the right decisions on the important ones. And so it's just something to think about what a physician's position is, making life decisions and how monumental those are. I cannot imagine the pressure that they feel. And we can do a lot by not just teaching them and then wasting their time where they need to be making decisions, create solutions so that we can help them with the eligibility. We can help them have those conversations, just take the burden off and let us do it. That's why usually it's not them, it's a nurse, right? It's someone in their office is doing some of those decisions. Anyway.
I just wanted to tag on to that a little bit. So in my previous life, I was sales and marketing. And as a background with social work, one of the things that I would do for my physicians was offer to them my expertise to take that burden off of them. If they would call me and let me know if they had somebody coming up in the next week, I would block that time off of my calendar so that if they needed that conversation to occur, that I would take that burden off of them. It started out a little slow. So then I used it with my HMD. So then she started calling me into the office. So then her partner started to see that she was calling me into the office. So then I was able to do lots of education with those nurses to where we had a great system worked out and that trusting relationship back and forth. So being able to be that expert is a huge piece, and selling that to them, just as they're making referrals to the nephrologist, make those referrals to the hospice provider, and how can I add value to you?
I have a quick question, and then somebody can answer it. When a provider that is not associated...
Is it juicy?
It's a juicy question, but it's on kind of what Todd was saying. So if a provider or a physician makes a referral to a hospice for a patient, after the patient is passed on to the hospice, does the physician ever hear about that patient or from the family ever again? Because they should, because if they had a great experience, that if I was a physician and a family of somebody I sent to hospice a year ago came to me and said, "Thank you so much for introducing us to Heart and Home. It made a huge impact in our lives. Our dad, he was peaceful. He was never in pain." That would have an effect on my decisions, like you were talking about, going forward. And like, it validates what he did. He made the right decision. So it's just a thought. I'd never thought of that before.
So I used to take out actual reports that would show what their weight loss, their pain was. But probably the most impactful that I had was I always had a sympathy card ready when that patient passed, and I would address it to the widow or the family member and take it to that physician's office so that they all could sign it, and then they were also aware that they had passed, because that was the number one complaint we always heard from physicians was, nobody ever tells us when our patient died. I've been taking care of them for 40 years, and I'm reading it in the paper. So again, taking that burden off, allowing them to be able to say their goodbyes as well. Just that extra little touch. And those little things make huge difference.
That's a great idea. Yeah. I love that.
If on death for the physician, we do tell them about we paint a little bit of a picture of what happened in the situation. Like, she passed away surrounded by her family. She was able to say her goodbyes to her daughter. Her son was able to come out of prison and, fix that. And then we also followed up with some information on how many visits that patient received, so because that's another thing that the physicians never understand is how much work a hospice puts into the care of a patient. And so if they know that and they know how much time and energy and love that we were able to give to them, that makes a huge imprint on them when they're going to refer their next patient to a hospice. And so we've heard great feedback from physicians on that. So if you're not doing that, something to consider.
Thank you.